Hi, welcome back. Just like to talk a little bit about or a little bit longer session around something that's sort of plagued me for a lot of my life. I've been fighting depression for probably a good on 30 years. Sometimes I've had good years, it's probably the best way to talk about it. Sometimes I've had bad years where the depression just really takes hold. I've been off and on medication for a lot of my life, trying to battle depression. There's been other things that have happened to me over that time to try and help me go through that, and I've tried lots of different things to get me back on track and to make sure that I am looking after myself. Sometimes that's really hard, and sometimes it's only through the care and people being dedicated to me that I've been able to manage to do that. But one of the things that I've fought against a lot of times, and what drives sometimes the depression that I have, is around what I call sort of expectation management. People are people, and we always have expectations of ourselves and possibly also the people around us. But we are our own harshest critic, and a lot of times that leads us down paths that we don't want to go. Sometimes we can live up to our own expectations, and sometimes these expectations are not so much around physical things. Sometimes they can be, but sometimes where we expect to be after a certain amount of time, or how much money we expect to have in the bank, or where do we expect to be in our work career. And then when you combine those expectations with sometimes what we call catastrophization, and I can't even say it, let alone speak it, that then puts us in can sometimes put us in a downward spiral. I've known myself when I've been in some of the darkest moods, I even just put expectations on myself rather than sort of realizing where I am and how badly I'm going at that point in time. I'm still putting expectations on myself about what I should be doing. Why am I lying here? Why am I doing this? Why am I taking time out? I should be out there doing, I don't know what, something, but moving my life along, and making sure I'm getting out the best of everything in my life at that point in time, and even for the future. And so that expectation management can sometimes be just debilitating, because you're not living up to your own expectations. And it doesn't really matter a lot of times what expectations people might have of you. Your expectations are the only one that really matters, and the only ones that really have any sort of say in it, and are the ones that really sort of play havoc in your mind. Expectation management is something that sometimes also creeps up on you. I think sometimes expectation management sometimes gets lumped together with goals. But goals are something that you put down, you write down, and you then talk about and you try and strive towards. And it's probably a bit more of an active measure that you're doing. You're thinking about where you want to be in a month, a year, 10 years, whatever it happens to be. And you try and actively manage how you might get there. Expectation management is a little bit smaller than that, but actually probably nearly even more important that you sort of understand where you're going, because expectation management can creep up on you at any particular point in time. You can just be sitting there doing anything, and a lot of times this can happen around significant events as well. Birthdays, Christmases, sometimes they're the worst times for me around this sort of thing. Expectation management, because you have this view of what you should be doing at that point in time, or where you should be at. Some of the birthdays that I've had, especially around the zeros or the fives, where there's sort of a particular significant birthday, it's sort of like, oh, why haven't you done this yet, or why haven't you got there? And I won't sort of talk about particular goals, but most of them are around monetary things, because that's the way I sort of drive. And also potentially where you are in life. I wish I'd done more at this point in time. I thought I'd be further along in my career, or I thought I would have had these sort of things. And even when somebody can point out to you how good you're actually going, or how good looks like from the outside, your own expectations come on board, and you still sort of really sort of still managing yourself to try and sort of say, well, I still don't think I'm doing good enough. I battle with this quite frequently, this sort of expectation of myself, and a lot of times it will get me further into depression than a lot of other things that might be going on. Physical things can get me there, but expectation can be actually worse than that in terms of what I think is going on and what is happening around me. A lot of times when I'm doing these sort of things, I then start to catastrophize of why I haven't gone any further. And sometimes if there is a physical problem, I know I did my Achilles a couple of years ago, and that was really bad for expectation management. You know, I actually started Achilles because I was trying to get I did my Achilles because I was starting to get back into sport, and then that just took that out completely. Suddenly I was sort of thinking about, oh, you can't even play sport, you know, your body's failing you, you know, why can't you do these things? And so the expectation that I had on myself, even though doctors and everybody else said, oh, look, you need to be able to do, you know, the expectation of myself was that I should be able to play sport, I should be able to do these things. Regardless of the fact that I hadn't played for a couple of years, I'd been fairly, I'd say, I won't say fit, but I would sort of say I'd be, you know, I was doing okay in terms of fitness. But the expectation that I had of myself was, why can't I do this? And now I've stuffed myself completely, and that just made it all worse. Other times when I've been at sort of birthdays and sort of Christmases or even New Year's, it's, you know, you look back on things that you might have wanted to achieve that particular year, and you just sort of look at all the negatives, all the things that you didn't achieve, rather than looking at a balanced view of what you've got in front of you, the things that you did manage to do and the things that you may not have got to. And it's very easy to sort of, from the outside in, look at it and sort of say, well, look, you know, you mightn't have achieved these things that you talked about here, but you achieved these things that weren't even on your list, and you actually did those. And so sometimes when we're doing this around that expectation of ourselves, we not only need to look at the things that we actually plan for ourselves, but also the things that organically happened for ourselves as well, because we were just still attuned to the things that we wanted to do, and we did the things that we needed to do, and we got where we wanted to, but we don't acknowledge them because they weren't part of goal number 16 or something like that, or they weren't part of the thoughts that we were doing at the start of the year that this was something important. But we still need to acknowledge those, and so therefore sometimes we can lighten the expectations on ourselves by sort of saying, well, these are all the things that we have done. The other thing when I get into this mood is sometimes I also try to remember the actual simple things. And these things a lot of people sort of forget about these things because they don't sort of appear every day. But just the simple things of having your family still around you and making sure that they're well, your health, in a simple thing, that is still, you're looking after yourselves both physically and mentally. And sometimes, you know, obviously talking about this from a mental health perspective, sometimes mentally you might not be doing too well, but other years, like I said, sometimes it's good years, sometimes it's bad years. Other years you have looked after yourself, or you've looked after yourself physically. Also, still being able to provide, still being able to do the little things, still being able to have a drink with your mates down the pub, at home, being able to do the small things, looking after people in a simple things. Those simple things are sometimes the biggest things that we take for granted, yet they are still huge things that we have done throughout the year. We may have a small goal or something like that we want to do through the year, but actually when we keep, you know, people safe, fed, looked after, their well-being is good, then that's a huge thing that we've done for that year as well. So sometimes when we're thinking about this expectation management, it's sometimes I have to literally think about the small things that I've done, that I do every day, and think about them in a positive light, and that can sometimes take away that weight of expectation that I have for myself, because I'm doing the simple things right and I'm still achieving in a better way, in a better light. And I think that can be sometimes things that people don't actually think about or sort of admit. You know, they're more thinking about the big things, the careers, the money, and all of those sort of things. And you can see that, you know, from my perspective, those are the things that, because I talk about them a lot, those are the things that matter to me and that drive my expectation. You know, how much money I've made, or where's my career going. For other people, I know it can be around their creative process, their kids, how well their kids are going. There's lots of different things that drive us in that sort of senses. So there is a lot of expectations that we put on ourselves and that we try to do, and sometimes we've actually got to sit back and sort of think, well, actually, maybe some of those expectations don't make sense, and we need to think about what are the things that we have actually achieved. And so that's how I, over the last few years, have really tried to recalibrate myself whenever I go down this crisis of expectation. And I'm thankful that my wife is very caring of me, and she starts to sort of point those things out to us as well, that the family is still together, the family is still doing well. And you sort of like, you know, and it's hard to then sort of think, oh yeah, of course that's a good thing, but actually you do need to take that time and sort of think that that is actually something that is actually happening and doing well. Sometimes you don't think of those things at that point in time, but keeping those things together and keeping other people on track and happy can sometimes be some of the best things that you can achieve in your life. So when you're struggling with your own expectations, and this is not about goals, this is about expectations of yourself, make sure you also think about the little things that you do day in, day out. Make sure that the simple things of giving your friends a smile, giving your children a hug, your wife a hug, and that they're feeling looked after, safe. Sometimes they're the things that actually matter the most, and they can really sort of make sure that your expectation is going well. So, as I say, look after yourselves and make sure you take care of yourselves as well. See you next time.